Hey there team, what's up? My name is John and welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a while since we've gotten in a rhythm of making consistent videos here, but I'm hoping that all of that is going to change for now. Today we're beginning a new 7-minute sermon series that we're calling All Things New. So update, it's a new year. Scratch that, a new decade. Happy new decade, everyone. And with a new year, the topic of newness is usually on everyone's mind. Many of us set New Year's resolutions to try new things, to break old habits, and start new ones. We plan vacations to travel to new places in the new year. Usually around this time, many of us are reflecting on the year or even the decade that was, and we're thinking about where we want things to be different or new in certain areas of our lives. And in order to experience this newness, many of us will go straight to changing our behavior. We try to change our diet, our workout routine, what time we get up in the morning. We try to change our friends or community. You might even try changing your spiritual practices, a new quiet time, a new way of praying or connecting with God. And we sort of collectively believe in our culture that this change in behavior is the key to experiencing a new, better kind of life. And while many of these changes are great, and while they can help us experience a certain sense of newness, if we're honest with ourselves, many of these changes don't really stick. I mean, sure, these are new behaviors, but if you're the type of person who sets New Year's resolutions, specifically in your faith, you know that simply a change in behavior is not really enough. It doesn't go deep enough to help us truly enter into the new and better life that Jesus offers us. You see, I believe that through a relationship with Jesus, there is actually a deeper, more authentic, more transformative experience of new that we have access to. And in this series, we're going to be talking about how we can actually enter in and experience that life of newness. And in order to do that, we're going to be walking through chapter 2 of Paul's letter to the Ephesians. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 1 says, "As for you, you were dead in your transgressions and sins, in which you used to live when you followed the ways of this world and the ruler of the kingdom of the air, the spirit who is now at work in those who are disobedient. All of us also lived among them at one time, gratifying the cravings of our flesh and following its desires and thoughts. Like the rest, we were by nature deserving of wrath." What Paul is describing here in these first few verses is our life apart or separated from God. From its earliest chapters, the Bible tells the story of God creating human beings to live in relationship, in unity with Him, by God's design, and under God's rule or dominion. But when human beings rebelled against God's design and decided that they actually wanted to rule themselves, they broke that unity. They broke that relationship with God. And the Bible's most used word for this is sin. Now, if you grew up like me, you grew up with the idea that sin was simply a list of bad behaviors, right? Swearing, underage drinking, lying. And while sin does include bad behaviors, the root of sin actually goes much, much deeper than that. What sin really is at its core is it is rebellion against the rule or design of God. Essentially, sin is saying to God, I don't want you to be in charge of my life. I want to be in charge of my own life. I want me to be the ruler. I want to do things my way. And the point that Paul is making here at the beginning of Ephesians 2 is that living that way, living by your own rule, your own design, that is actually not living at all. In fact, Paul says that when we live that way, we are actually dead. My guess is you have probably experienced the reality that when you try and run or rule your own life, it doesn't really work. A life of selfishness and self-centeredness simply does not lead to the kind of life that is truly lived. It separates us from others, it separates us from God, and therefore it separates us from how we were designed to live. So this is a huge problem that Paul is describing. But don't worry, because he's about to get to the hopeful part. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 4 says, "But because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ even when we were dead in our transgressions. It is by grace you have been saved. And God raised us up with Christ and seated us with him in the heavenly realms in Christ Jesus, in order that in the coming ages he might show the incomparable riches of his grace, expressed in his kindness to us in Christ Jesus. For it is by grace you have been saved through faith. And this is not from yourselves, it is a gift from God, not by works, so that no one can boast." What Paul is saying here is that in Jesus, God has created a new way for us to enter into a new kind of life. That for every person who is trying to run their own life, and therefore living a life that is really death, for each and every person, Jesus comes and he offers a new life. And there are so many ways that this new life that Jesus offers is truly new and better than what we are currently experiencing. But one of the most integral parts to this is that in the old selfish way of living, it's all about what you can do. How well can you behave? What work can you accomplish? What can you do to serve yourself? And as we've already seen, fully focusing on yourself and your own abilities does not lead to life. And what I think is so freeing about the way of life that Jesus offers is it is not the type of life you need to earn your way into. It's not a life only given to those who can measure up or who check off all the right boxes. But as Paul says, this new life, it is not entered into by our own work, but it is entered into by accepting it as a gift of grace. When you say yes to Jesus, he raises us from our old, dead way of living and ushers us into an entirely new life, a life that is built on things like love and peace and grace, and once again, unity in perfect relationship with God, which, again, is how you were designed to live. Through Jesus, we have a fresh, new opportunity to say yes to God's rule, to say yes to his design for our lives. And when we do, when we say yes to him, we experience a new, better life. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like, and if you are not yet, please subscribe to the channel so that you never miss a video. I also want to let you know before you go about my email list. Now, I know that's a scary word. Trust me, this is not like the other email lists that constantly annoy you, but I send one email a month with some reading recommendations. These are just books that I've been reading that have been helping me move forward in my faith. And so once a month, I just want to share them with you in the hopes that they would help move you forward in your faith as well. And so if you have trouble perhaps finding good reading or good books, or even sometimes I throw a podcast in there, if you're looking for resources to help you grow or move forward in your faith, I highly recommend that you just click the link in the description, sign up for that email list. I promise to not annoy you with more than one email a month with some reading recommendations. That is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week right here. I love you all. Keep being awesome.